Oof. Wow, this thing's heavy. Oh my goodness. So in the box is the BLUETTI AC200L portable power station. They sent this to me for review, but that in no way is going to affect my actual thoughts on the power station. If there's something I like, I'll tell you. If there's something I don't like, I'll tell you that too. So let's get started. Good grief. Box within a box. All right, so you can see. So we open it up. We have a baggie with the adapter for DC charging, whether that's the cigarette lighter or the PV. So you've got their specialized cable with a, looks like an XT90. Our car adapter to XT90. There's our MC4 to XT90. But these are such thin PV cables, 14 gauge PV cables. So it's kind of funny that they've got 14 gauge on an XT90. And then our AC cable, which has their, again, their custom plug on the end. And this is 14 gauge for the AC line. There is a little baggie with a tiny screw in it. I don't know what that screw's for. Sure, we'll find out at some point, but I probably don't want to lose it. But yeah, I almost missed that in the bottom of this bag. It's got the manual. Let's see. All English except for Appendix 5. Okay. But yeah, not bad. I mean, 33-page manual, so hopefully it's really detailed. Quality control stamp on the back. Hopefully that means that everything's good. And the warranty card with contact information. And the power station wrapped in another bag. And so right off the bat, I am glad that it has these thick handles on the side because this thing has some weight to it. Oh, I wonder if that screw is for this grounding stud down here. See, I could put it on there and make sure I don't lose it. Does it fit? Ooh, it does. All right, so without looking at the manual, I'm guessing this is what the screw's for. What we've got here is a 2048 watt-hour lithium iron phosphate power station. Normal output power is 2,500 watts. We've got two DC outputs, a 12 volt, 10 amps, so 120 watts over here on the cigarette lighter. This one's interesting, a 48 volt, 8 amp. So I'm not quite sure what they're going to use that one for. So the USB-A's, 5 volts at 3 amps, 9 volts at 2 amps, 12 volts at 1.5 amps, 18 watts each. And then the USB-C's, 5, 9, 12, 15, or 20 volts at 3 amps, 20 volts at 5 amps. So you can have 100 watts for one, or a total of 150 watts for two. I mean, it kind of looks like it should be 100 watts a piece. But if you don't look at the manual, it says 150 watts out of both of these. We have, looks like 4 20 amp AC outlets, which you can, like I said, can output up to 2,400 watts in total. From an overload or a surge standpoint, it can surge 2,520 watts up to 3,000 watts for 2 minutes. And then from 3,000 to 3,600 watts for 5 seconds. And then it can surge over 3,600 watts for a half a second. And then we have our 30 amp RV plug. And I always keep forgetting to remember to mention this is a pure sine wave power station. So if we turn this thing on, ooh, nice bright green. So we're currently at 56% state of charge. I don't know, initial impressions on the screen, it kind of seems a little busy to me. I know I have never had a BLUETTI power station before, so I don't know if this is what all of them look like, but if there's no DC inputs or outputs or AC inputs or outputs, why show it? Just clear it. So then your eyes can instantly be drawn to whatever information is important. But we've got our input, DC output, AC input, AC output, state of charge. Looks like it's in an eco mode right now. Screen times out. I guess I'm used to just pressing the power button on all these other power stations. All right, so you have to press one of these buttons down here to get the screen to turn back on. And then down here, it shows you a time remaining. So on the right-hand side of the power station, there's nothing other than a vent on the back. I do like that they made this big. A lot of the power stations just tend to put this tiny little spec card on the power station, whether it's on the back or whether it's on the bottom. But this one, you know, it's big. They put a lot in here and they make sure that you can see it. So that's nice. And then looking at the left side of the power station, we've got either another vent. We've got our DC input, and this is for the cigarette lighter and for PV. So these things look like they use a 2-pin aviation socket. And so this is nice. So it has, let's see if I can hold this up. So it's got the voltage spec on here, 12 volts to 145 volts. It doesn't show an amperage rating on here or a maximum wattage. I wish they would print that on the side because it's nice when you can easily see that. We've got our AC input down here, 120 volts to 20 amp maximum. You can charge up to 2400 watts, and that'll take you from 0 to 80% in 45 minutes. So we'll have to make sure we test that out and make sure that that recharge actually works. Here was our grounding stud. We've got a circuit breaker reset here, and then our battery expansion port. Dimension-wise, we are looking at 16.5 by 14.5 by 11. And the survey says 62 pounds on this power station. I mean, overall construction, it is a hard plastic. It does have some heft to it, as I stated. It does not want to slide. So some of these, all the power stations are different. So you just kind of have to get used to whatever one you get. But this one, it looks like you just barely, a single press. You do not have to press and hold to turn these things on. Let's check the voltage on the DC output. 13.26 volts, which is a good voltage. 120.3 volts on AC output. 120.3 volts on here as well. This has a mobile app, which you can change some of the settings in it, but you don't actually have to set up the app to change some of these settings, which is kind of nice. With the unit's LED screen, you have direct control over various settings such as powerlifting mode, eco mode, output frequency, and charging modes. So I guess in a pinch, you know, if say you forget your phone, it is nice being able to make a few changes directly from the settings here, as long as you remember what they are. I will say I do like that they do have a fairly substantial manual. It does offer a lot of information on here. Now let's take a look at the app and see how the app is. So we've got our My Device list. We can see in the app we've got 56% battery, which is exactly what we're showing on the screen. Let's open it up. Okay. And it's kind of basic. Power off the device. No. What's the timing? So if I tap DC USB to turn it off, how long does it take? Okay, so you've got a confirmation. Not too bad. A couple of seconds maybe. AC. Confirm. That was pretty fast. That seemed less than a second. The gear icon on the top is hard to hit. Okay, so this I like. I can come in here and I can look at the manual right from inside the app. All these other companies that have these things, they need to take a page out of the book from here. You already know what the model is. You're already in the app. So give me direct access to the user manual. So here's the UPS modes. DC input source. Versioning. Max grid charging. So I mean, it gives you all your controls that you're gonna need. So we'll go through, we'll recharge this thing all the way up. I'd like to do the fast charge. So maybe I'll do the fast charge as well. All right, time for our discharge test of the BLUETTI AC200L. And our meter is connected to our charge inverter, which will dump into our main battery bank. And reset our counter. And we've got a good 120 volt output on this test. And we'll be back in a couple hours and see what the test results are. Finally got down to 0. You can see the power station still has a little bit of latent power, just letting you know that it's, you know, basically out of power. I'm sure that only lasts for so long. Apparently it won't let me turn it back on until it hits at least 1%. So this low voltage, this low of a state of charge, we're at 117.7 volts. And we put in 1.84 kilowatts in 4 hours and 27 minutes. So if we do the math, 184 divided by 2048, wow, 89.8% efficient. That's really good. Sweet. All right, so let me get this rewired up and we will do the charge test. So it's 1500 hours. I went through and redrained the battery down so that it was going to be completely empty, and we can see we're at 0%. The manual says on standard charge, which this is a 15 amp charging cable, standard charge should take about 3 hours. So by 6 o'clock this should be all done. So the charging has begun, and we'll be back in a few hours to see if it finishes by 1800. Well, we're at 1703. It's been about 2 hours exactly, and our AC200L has completely charged up to 100% using this standard mode. So that is an hour faster than the manual actually tells you. I'm quite surprised. Okay, so I wanted to try the charging again and see if I could enable turbo mode. So if I open up the app, go into the 200L, we can see we've got 0% power. So if I tap the gear, charging mode, so standard, if I switch it to turbo, the manual says that it should charge 0 to 80% in 45 minutes. Now, I don't know if that changes anything because looking at advanced, max charging current of grid is 12 amps. So I don't know if that actually is going to work or not. The manual even says that this is supposed to be 15 by default, but you can't do it. And to go pro mode, you have to have a password. So it's just before 9:15, so we should get back just around 10 o'clock. And we're charging with 1400 watts. So I got stuck on a phone call and I was not able to get away and actually catch the 10 o'clock time range, but I did take a screenshot off of my phone, and you can see that we are nowhere near 80% in 45 minutes. And that's due to the charge current limitation. So I'm not quite sure why there's even the option to have a turbo mode when the charge current limit is fixed at 12 amps or less. But on the plus side, we are still around that 2 hour mark for a full charge from 0 to 100%. With the recharge test done, I'm not going to go through and do a lot of extensive testing in this video because I'm going to save that for a couple of future videos. But I still wanted to do some basic testing. I ended up going through and doing, you know, the standard coffee pot test, and it used about 1,000 watts of power, no problems whatsoever. I don't even think I heard the fans kick on at all, and it went through successfully. And it also ended up testing out the eco mode at the same time because I had forgotten that I had enabled it. And so the eco mode works on both AC and DC. There's different options for both. But you can set a minimum threshold value of output power as well as a time frame. And so if the output power drops below that threshold for a set period of time, then the AC or the DC output would turn off. So after I had got done brewing my pot of coffee, I had stepped away and came back an hour and a half later, and the AC output was turned off on the coffee pot. You know, it's a nice little feature. I had also gone through and you know, we're in wintertime. My office gets cold. And so I brought the BLUETTI into my office and plugged my heater into it and ended up letting that run for a little while. And I believe that pulled, was it 12 or 1500 watts of power? And actually then the fans did kick in on this unit, but the fans were so quiet. I expect the fans to be a whole lot louder. So I've got a clip of the fans running, and we'll see if we can actually hear it while the while the heater's going, because we might just end up hearing the heater fan going and not the actual unit fans. This is supposed to have the ability to charge from both AC and DC sources at the same time. It's been nasty outside for the past several weeks. You know, no sun at all. So I want to take the DC charging cable and the AC charging cable and connect both of these up at the same time and see what we can get as a maximum charge value. So we've got the DC plugged into a 12 volt 10 amp power supply, and then we've got the AC input coming in, so 1433 on the AC, currently only 54 watts on the DC. So in the app, they do have a DC input source. I'm not really sure why it defaults to PV as opposed to just being self-adaptive. I don't really know what the difference is, but I want to switch it to self-adaptive so it could find that proper wattage that it can use. And I was curious if it was going to make a difference. It's still only doing 55 watts on the DC side. So even though I wasn't able to successfully get, you know, the full PV rated wattage input on this power station right now, this shows you that you can charge with both an AC and a DC source at the same time. So the last test that I wanted to run before I wrap things up was regarding the UPS feature. This power station actually has 4 different types of UPS options. The first one is the standard UPS feature that you normally think of when it loses power from the AC side at all. It's going to seamlessly transfer over and power the AC outputs from the battery. But then it also has a PV priority UPS. When the unit stated charge is above the minimum threshold that you set, and then solar and battery will provide power to your loads. When it drops below that minimum state of charge value, then the grid and the battery will provide power to your loads. Time-controlled UPS is like when you have time of use from your utility company. So in my case, during the summertime, between 2 and 7 p.m., the rates are 1.5 times the normal cost. And so what I could do with this is I could program during that time frame to not utilize grid power at all. It would just rely on the battery power. And then it could recharge from the grid outside of those times when grid charging is cheaper. And then the last option is customized UPS, which really is kind of a blend between the other different UPS options. And you can really customize time frames. Do you want it to charge from the grid at all? Set your schedules. Like I said, it's kind of just a mixed option of the other 3 types of the UPS features. Well, it looks like our battery is fully recharged, so we're going to do our standard UPS test on the laptop. And I also plugged in the USB light into it so we could see what happens with that when we go and actually disconnect the AC input and see if the laptop or the light goes out when it loses power. And we will pull the plug in 3, 2, 1, now. No blinking, no flickering. I didn't notice anything at all. The laptop is still running and the battery's sitting right there. So if something happened, the laptop would completely lose power. So the standard UPS feature works as you would expect it to. It's fast enough that your sensitive electronics are not going to lose power. So to wrap up this first impression, initial thoughts, review, obviously we didn't go through and do a lot of the normal testing that I do because I want to expand on some of that in some later videos. But one thing to be aware of is the fact that your AC and your DC outputs don't reflect power around that 5 watts or less range. Just be aware of it. It's not really a deal breaker or anything. I mean, case in point right now, my DC light is on and it's showing 0 watts output. And then the same with the AC. If it's below 5 watts or so, it just doesn't show. One other thing is this button. You know, I like the button. I don't know. I just like the feel of the click of the button. But that green can be bright, especially when you're in a dark room. So if you're in a tent or a camper, or you have to take this into your bedroom to power something while you're sleeping, either take a piece of tape or, you know, a blanket and cover up that light, because it is bright while it's in the dark. But some pros on this: I love the fact that this is a 2048 watt-hour unit. You know, it's the biggest power station that I've looked at so far. It's surprising at, you know, even running that space heater, how long it can run that heater. As always, I love the fact that these are using lithium iron phosphate cells. It's a much safer chemistry as opposed to the NMC chemistry. I love the fans on this thing. I have not pushed this thing to its limits yet, so the fans could get louder. But when I was running 1500 watts out of this, I couldn't hear the fans. I knew they were running, and you'll see the little fan indicator showing up every once in a while, but it's not like the other ones where you hear it just start to scream when it's got that load on it. I am glad to see they've added some of these customized options in the app for eco mode and, you know, customized UPS options, because that really just kind of expands the capabilities of what you can do with this power station more than just on off. I guess from the con standpoint, one that comes to mind is the fact that the manual states that this is supposed to have a default of 15 amps of charging, and yet the app seems to have it locked to 12 amps. And I don't like the fact that if I want to get a full 20 amp charge out of this, I have to buy another cable. I'm thankful that they've given all the, you know, the different cables for other types of charging, but why not just include that larger cable, a 20 amp cable, so that we can get a full 2400 watts of charging. You can use turbo mode if you combine PV and AC to get a full 2400 watts of charging, but turbo mode without using a DC source doesn't buy you anything, because you're going to have that cap of 1400 watts, I think. So all in all, out of the tests that we've done so far, it's a nice power station. You know, I understand why BLUETTI is one of the big players in this arena. They really do make nice quality equipment. They think a lot about different features that you could use. As always, you know, don't listen just to me. Do your own research. Look at some of the other reviews to see if this is going to be a unit that really you think that would benefit you. So the pricing on this power station, normally it's $16.99, but currently, because of their Christmas specials, they have a sale going on these for $14.99. So I will link the power station down in the description below. I'll also have a link down there to their Christmas deals. If I can get any coupon or discount codes, I will make sure to also link those down in the description as well. So I look forward to some of the next videos that we're going to be doing, where we're going to be doing some more practical testing on this power station, and then as well as, you know, kind of getting some large loads, and let's see how far we can push some of this stuff. And with that, I'm going to let y'all go. So y'all stay safe, stay warm, have a Merry Christmas, and we'll catch up with you later.